Did it really? All right. Okay. Time being 6:01, I'd like to call the Board of Health meeting to order. All members are present except for Katie Van Nest and Clay Kelly. Everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Everyone be seated. All right. First item on the agenda is announcements from the Health Department. I'm going to turn that over to Chris to provide those announcements.
Okay. A couple of quick announcements. So just our latest update on COVID. As of today, we have 23 active cases. And again, that's proctored tests, people that have actually gone and got a PCR test as opposed to home testing. So 23 cases as of today. Other health department news, just want to remind residents that the cost for recycling or disposal of a mattress has gone from $20 to $40 because our vendor costs have gone up. And although the compost site is closed, if you call the health department, you can schedule a time for someone to meet you up there and drop them off. And we do not offer curbside pickup. You got to bring them to the compost site. On that note, the compost site is closed for the season and will remain closed until the first weekend of April. And finally, the other thing that I realized, the trash calendars that went out this year, there was a mistake on the printing, and they don't indicate the trash delays for next week and the week after. So there will be no trash pickup on Monday the 26th and no trash pickup on January 2nd. So all routes will be delayed one day the next week. We'll put that out on social media and through a code red alert later this week. And that's it.
All right.
Christmas tree pickup. If you have a real Christmas tree that you're looking to get rid of, put them out on the curb on the 7th, first weekend in January, and they will be picked up by our trash company.
And Health Department still taking Christmas lights?
Yes, if you have non-working or old Christmas lights, bring them up to Town Hall and drop them off at the Health Department. We will recycle them.
Thank you. Any questions for the Health Department?
What do you do with the Christmas trees?
They go up to the compost site and get chipped and added to the compost.
Clean them up.
All right. Moving on. Thank you, Chris. First and only discussion and action item for tonight is a discussion on updating the regulation restricting the sale of tobacco and vape products and the regulation prohibiting smoking workplaces and public places. So obviously we are decreased members tonight, so I think it would be irresponsible for us to do anything major, but I do think this is a good opportunity for us to chat, get on the same page about how we're going to do this and any concerns that we can move forward. Obviously there is a new sales regulation here. This is after I talked to Massachusetts Association of Health Boards. This was emailed out to everybody on Thursday. The 2021 was updated to this version, which does provide some clarity for some of the questions that we had about some of the statements in the last meeting. So we're going to, preferably at the next meeting, take a hard stop of what we've done and go back and look at the options that are on here to see if they provide some clarity and if we want to make any changes to the things that we already decided we wanted to include. My game plan for exactly how this was going to be approved, just for clarification, was that we would go through and look at the options as written on the front page or the ones that were highlighted in green per the last meeting. And from there, submit that with all those decisions to Town Council for review. After that, it would come back to us if there were any changes, decide those changes, accept those changes, have a public hearing after that, and then we would vote whether or not we were going to approve. So nothing that we voted on last meeting was intended to be bound for this, intended to be bound right then and there as a policy in Abington. So just for clarity, that was the plan on how this was going to go and how it still will probably go moving forward. So I want to take this opportunity, if we have discussion, to clarify some things. If there's anything anybody wants to bring up and ask questions about.
So you want to go through it as a board and vote on everything, send it to Town Council, and then have the public hearing?
Yes, because we wouldn't have a draft knowing what we would and would not include. So if we didn't want to in the first place include a particular item, then I don't think it makes sense to have town council review something that we aren't planning on to include unless we hear the public hearing that we want to include that item and then go forward and do it. So the plan was not to send this as is and have town council come back and say this is what we're going to do. We're going to send town council what we would like to do and then send that for the public hearing. That's what we've done in the past, the last time, 2013, when we did these.
So you make all your decisions first and then have the public hearing?
Make the decisions on the things that are Board of Health decisions first and then have the public hearing after those things have been reviewed by town council as acceptable.
So just being on here, they're not acceptable by town council? I thought that this was all approved by
They
the
shouldn't be, but
Board of Health.
there could be some changes and small changes, but generally in the past, especially when a regulation similar to this has been reviewed by KP Law and other communities, it hasn't required much changes.
So we go through it and make up our minds about everything and then have the public hearing?
Well, no, we have the initial discussion to get that draft laid out. We have town council review it, and that's when we have the public hearing based on the draft that we've created.
And it doesn't mean that you have the public hearing and based on that input, you could change, a portion of what you decided on previously. That's why you have the public hearing.
Absolutely. Yeah, nothing that we make now is necessarily set in stone. It's just to have that working copy sent over and completed so that we can have that public hearing. This is the draft that as is, if we have the public hearing, could go into effect, so.
So you don't think it would make sense to hear what people think and what they want
Well, I think it would be fair.
before we
that-
make our decisions?
Well, I think it would be fair that they see where we're coming from before we make those decisions. I mean, if the public completely disagrees with a certain point of this and we weren't even going to consider it in the first place, then I think we're all wasting each other's time.
But the board should.
That's how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, it's how the board should put forward what they're thinking. Then it goes to town council to make sure that everything is legally done and complete. And then we bring it to the community and they can give us their input. And if there are changes to make based on the community input, we make those changes before.
That's how this board does it?
I think that's how most boards would do it. I mean, that's how.
Have the public hearing after they've made all their
That's how
decisions?
you do it at the state as well, on any state regulations as well.
And it's exactly how we've historically done it 10 years ago when we did in the first place with this exact same process.
Okay. So we're going to start over with this one or just continue on?
Well, so we are going to start over because we want to, we should probably solidify the decisions that we made previously in comparison to the changes here. If something's worded differently that's more specific, then we'll do that. I don't think that having not the whole board, at least 2/3 of the board here, it's a good idea. I mean, we have opinions about this to do. I'm happy to go through right now, and if we can clarify some of the things in here as a group right now, I think that's going to be helpful to the conversation, but so obviously the checklist at the front of this page provides basically, exactly what sections are listed, so that way we're not looking for the highlights as much, and a good summary of what those suggestions are for policy decisions. So we, so for example, we went through all the way up until on the 2021 regulation, so I'll translate that over here for a moment. Up until, we did the first 5 items, essentially. And that's the same thing on this new one. So we just go through those 5 items again and decide if we want to stick with the decisions we made, if we made any or not, based on the new wording.
So the copy of the 2023 I have is not in color, so I can't tell what's green and what's yellow.
So where it says right in the front, it gives the sections. So for example, the first section is E6, which is no permanent renewal if outstanding fines exist. So that would
Says
be,
that on the front?
yep, so checklist for policy decisions.
Oh, I see.
All those are put here to kind of make it easy.
So those
Yeah.
those are the green ones?
Yes, all the things that are green are listed right there. So we've already gone through the first 5. We may not have made a decision on the first 5, but we've gone through those. So the question would be just going back through them again and solidifying or changing.
Now,
Well, we don't have to now. If we want to wait for the rest of the board, I don't have an issue doing that. But I do think that if we want to go through these things, and if we have questions or anything like that, it's a good opportunity to clarify. So I know we had a lot of questions on the sales permit section in particular, so I think it would benefit us to at least go through section E and get on the same page with that. Which starts on page 8. Section 6. So, for example, section E6 is, a tobacco product sales permit will not be renewed if the permit holder has failed to pay all fines issued, and at the time period to appeal the fines has expired, and/or the permit holder has not satisfied any of the outstanding permit suspensions. So we had,
Yes.
yeah, we had decided to do that at our last meeting.
E6 would be green if I had a color copy?
I believe so. According,
Because it looks like E7 is actually colorized.
Well, yeah, E7 is, tobacco product permit will be renewed if the permit holder is sold. Tobacco will not be renewed if the permit, so that's just another one.
yeah, that's another policy decision. And actually, it looks like it's the same situation on the 2021 copy. They may not have highlighted that, which is why the checklist is a good thing to go over with exactly what those policy decisions are.
So,
Yeah, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all.
Yep. So yeah,
So they're
6,
not-
7, 8, 11,
Oh,
A and B.
they're not necessarily green.
Not, I think that may be the only one that wasn't green. I think there was an error when creating it by the Health Board Association. 'Cause it does not seem to continue. G. J. Yep. Yeah, I think that's what happened. There was just an error when making the document. So 6 is the first item there. So with that being the case, I don't know that we did decide on that if it wasn't highlighted green.
We did do it.
We did. We did. Okay. Yeah, it sounded familiar.
I mean, I think it just goes without saying, if someone is not in compliance when they already have a permit, it goes without saying that you would not renew that permit until they were in compliance to, whether it's fines, outstanding fees, whatever it might be, until they get themselves in compliance.
Right. And I wanted to check, so that is, I believe, currently included in our regulations. That wouldn't be,
Change.
yeah, it wouldn't be changed. That would just be.
That's why it's not green.
Right.
It's not green.
Yeah, that's section 7 of the, section E7 of the old regulation. Okay. The item right below that, tobacco product sales permit will not be renewed if the permit holder has sold a tobacco product to a person under the age of 21 3 times within the previous permit year. The time period to appeal is expired. The violator may request a hearing in accordance with subsection 6 of the violations section. That was highlighted, and I believe we had voted to move forward with it.
Right. I mean, again, I think, 3 times is pretty egregious, and I think that seeing that we really don't have many violations or any violations usually in a year, that 3 would be something that would be really outside the bounds of.
And I believe, Chris, you'd said we don't see a lot of those violations.
No, and that's not through us, that's through Department of Revenue.
Right.
But
Correct.
yeah, we had not, at least since I've been here, that hasn't been an issue.
Right. So we had voted to move forward with that at the previous meeting, at our previous meeting. Following that is the cap on permits. So the way that it's laid out between these two permits is a little different. These two versions is a little different, which is why I thought it was important to bring up. Because, let me just move that over. So a piece of paper. So this actually specifies which cap is which. So the basic cap, which is sections A through C, which would basically be that we have X number of permits and that they are first come, first served basis, and once we hit that, we won't give it out anymore, there'll be a waiting list. The second one, which is the one we had voted to move forward with at the last meeting, was an advanced cap, which means that when the regulation goes into effect, those permits that are suspended, revoked, or not renewed would be retired by the board.
Yeah, I think it's important to know, currently we have 29 permits that are outstanding. We have 23 permits that are outstanding, we have the cap of 29. So we still have, if that fact happened, what would be the case would be that it would reduce, say, if one was returned or retired, we'd still have 28 as a cap, and then there would be 22 that would be outstanding.
I think the thing that's important to note with this is Section 9 that's been added by the Health Board Association to clarify, notwithstanding a cap on the total number of permit holders, the seller of a business holding a valid tobacco sales permit may transfer said permit to a bona fide purchaser for value of the business, subject to approval by the Board of Health as required herein. The purchaser shall apply for the transfer of the permit no later than 30 calendar days after said purchase. The purchaser shall not sell tobacco product until the transfer of permit is approved by the Board of Health, and all fines and suspensions of the previous owner must be satisfied prior to the sale. So that clarifies a little bit more how that transfer would work in the case of a sale, which I think is important. It was one of the questions that I think was left lingering when we last talked about it. And when I spoke to Cheryl from the Massachusetts Association of Health Board, she said that was one of the questions they were getting a lot of. So it was important to include. So we voted for the advanced cap previously. I think because now, so section, okay, so look at that. Yeah, section 9. So where it says in the checklist policy, no new permits within 500 feet of a school, that should be 10, not 11, A and B. All right, so 9 is not one of the ones that we choose from.
Okay.
So that moves on to 10, which is retail density. And I think we had voted for schools and not for retail
I think we said.
permittees.
We ended the discussion.
Yeah, we ended discussion at that point. Looking back at DJ Wilson's visit to us at our last year, a lot of communities do take the school cap, but not necessarily the retail cap. There are communities that do that. The reasoning and the thought behind it is that a lot of those retailers, if they're close to each other, will try and use marketing ploys and gimmicks to get people into their stores over the ones that are surrounding them. So the threat of that marketing in that area is a little bit higher to try and get people into the store. So the thought is to limit that for that reason, on top of the obvious public health reasoning. So that's as far as we'd gotten.
I do think, new permits within, say, 500 feet, I'm fine with that. I think, obviously, Abington has a lot of intersections where there's a lot of convenience stores, but they all have current licenses, so they would not be affected by this.
Yep.
And if, they were transferred, it still would not be affected, so I'm fine with saying that any new licenses with 500 feet.
And well, 500 feet's an option. We can also choose from 1,000, 2,000. I think the number is whatever we would decide it to be in that section, should we decide to go that route.
So I'm not seeing how 8D fits into all this. We voted to approve that as apparently 10A on the other one. Any permit surrendered, revoked, or not renewed, either because a retailer no longer sells tobacco products or because a retailer closes the retail business, shall be returned to the Board of Health and shall be permanently retired by the Board of Health. Yet, above that, it says that somebody that buys a business can apply for a permit. So the
So this is,
8D retires the permit, and 8A through C allow a new business to apply for the permit that was retired by the previous retailer that they
That's
bought the
only if they
business from.
fail to renew, they fail to renew their permit.
Any permit surrendered.
Yeah, so-
That is, you're surrendering when you sell the business, right?
Yeah, if I can add for clarification, I think, Lisa, that D advanced cap is a different type of cap. All the other ones are under the basic. So they're basically saying you can choose these, or you could do D, which is sort of the hardcore version.
So,
So I think what the board was looking at was the ABC is one option, D is an entirely different option.
so.
and that's where I
we-
think the layout on the previous one, where it was A is the basic cap, B is the advanced cap. We opted for the advanced cap. The difference is that this changes the sale of the business situation, where before they had to apply. In this new version, instead of applying, they can get the transfer with the Board of Health's approval, which changes that up a little bit.
Advanced cap D?
Yeah, so it doesn't have that breakup where it says basic cap and advanced cap in the old version. It's section A where it says the note at the bottom,
10A.
this is the basic cap, and 10B is the advanced cap.
So we approved 10A and 10B.
We approved only 10B, because we opted for the advanced cap over the basic cap.
I wrote down that we approved 10A. So you're saying 10B from the previous one is equivalent to 8D from the new one?
10B and 8D, so 10B from the old version
10B and 8D.
and 8D. So the
Okay.
difference is that, so I don't know that the, where is it here?
So you're interpreting any permit surrendered to mean that the business is permanently closed, not that they sold their business and they're allowing it to be assumed by the new business owner.
Yeah, that's covered under 9, sale of business in the new version. So surrendered would be, I'm not selling tobacco anymore, here is my permit.
So you can transfer it.
Yes, that's what 9 clarifies in this one, the transfer process as before. So, and actually, to Chris's point, so the basic cap on 10A, for example, so we did approve 10A as tobacco licenses, the number, but the basic cap is also part of 10A. So we approved basically part of 10A, where it says this phrase needs to be removed, if not including subsection B. So they're dependent on each other. We're including subsection B, so that gets rid of the basic cap option for A. So part of A does apply in section 8 on the new version, where it talks about there is no more than 29. But it's that C section where it says the waiting list and such. If we voted for the advanced cap, so that takes away that basic cap of there's a waiting list, yada, yada, yada. There's the number of licenses and they're going to get retired. That's the version that we voted for previously. Yep. So So we set the number at 29, which leaves 6 open. The advanced cap would retire the 23 as they'd come back, and leave the 6 outstanding. If somebody took the 6th, took one of the 6 that are there, and then they retired them, they would apply as well, but there's still 6 to be given out. So this has the clarity. I think there was an option before, even if they couldn't get transferred the license from the previous business, they still could apply for a new one, one of the 6 licenses, until they go away.
So, you lost me there. You're saying they can transfer a license, but when somebody turns it in because they're not selling anymore, it'll be retired.
Correct.
Yes.
So how does transfer happen if somebody turns it in and the new business has to reapply? Or apply?
If they were going to sell the business and then they turned in their license beforehand or their permit beforehand, then I don't know what they were doing, because if their intention was to sell the business as is, they could transfer it. They retire it, they retire it. I mean,
So-
if they don't have an active license, it goes away.
Transfer is allowed, but this all happens within the health department.
Right.
I think there's a
So-
clear and distinct difference between, like, someone basically, I'm going out of business, I'm retiring, I'm selling, I'm just, retiring my business and I'm giving the permit back, versus I'm selling my business, I'm gonna transfer the license, and I think that's pretty clear.
So you will consider that, and not, when somebody gives a permit back because they're selling their business, you're not gonna consider that an eliminated permit, a retired permit?
Yeah, I think they're two different things. They're not, if it's,
Think so?
it's not, if they're surrendering the permit or it gets taken away, it goes away. But if they're just selling the business, so they're not giving it back to us, they're saying, hey, I'm selling my business to such and such a person, we're going to transfer that permit over. They're not saying, I'm getting rid of my permit.
Okay.
It's going with that next business. If that's
Okay.
been the intention, I think that's clear there. But if they're turning it back in because they don't want to do it anymore, it's a completely different story.
Yeah, and just for clarification, like, that doesn't happen. There are 3 food establishments in Abington that have closed in the last 2 weeks, and none of them have surrendered a food permit. And in fact, the only reason I know is because I reached out to them for re-permitting. So the health department's usually not informed when a business is closing, so that there's no formal process of surrendering your permit.
When do
It's just a renewing.
tobacco permits renew?
They're due December 1st, and they renew on January 1st.
So we vote to renew them January 1st?
No, that's just the health department thing. As long as everything's in order, they just
It's an
renew.
administrative function.
Automatically?
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like a liquor license where the selectmen vote on it?
No.
Yeah.
There's no voting on this?
No, and I think in the weird way these current regs would work, where you have a cap of 29, and there's 23 existing businesses, so even in a situation, let's say a convenience store closed, surrendered their permit, not taking into consideration who was coming in next, and then that business wanted to open up, even though we've now retired one permit and brought the number down to 28, there's still 6 available, so that whoever buys that business could apply for a permit and get it.
But I think it's important to note that it says those transfers are subject to the approval by the Board of Health. So if they're going to transfer those things, even if they came in and surrendered and say, hey, I'm going to get rid of my license, somebody come in and say, well, I'm actually buying that business and I want to transfer that would come to us and we can decide if we're going to transfer that instead of retiring it.
Yeah.
So it's subjective.
Well, I think to Chris's point, that surrendering doesn't happen very often, but if that situation were to happen where it was going to get transferred into the same business, it would come to us if they made that request to determine that.
And even if somebody retired it and somebody else wanted to go into a store, we would still have several permits still available for that individual to apply for,
Until they're all gone.
until they're all gone.
Yes.
So there's some wiggle room. And I can tell you, I mean, just as a human being, if a store owner did come to the health department to surrender their permit because they were closing, I would ask them, like, are you just closing or are you selling the business? And I would probably tell them, hey, if you're selling the business, you can transfer this title. So we try to look out for people as much as we can.
So even though it's not written here, it's just an unwritten rule?
To let them know, or,
Yeah, just that whole exchange, you just,
Yeah, I mean, that's just a courtesy.
Yeah, I see.
I mean, they should have been provided a copy should this go into place.
Yeah.
And at least when it goes into place, we will send it out to the 23 retailers and say, hey, this is the updated version, so that this information is available. I mean, if they do or do not choose to read it, it's a different story, but. So bottom line, those are the things that we've gone through. And if we want to choose to reaffirm them in a vote form, we can, or we can wait for the whole board to be here and go through the rest of it. But I think there's enough here that we need to have the entire board present, to at least 2/3 of the board, to make it, worth the vote of going through, and fair.
I agree.
So that would be my recommendation, is that we table any further action onto voting anything, to put into the draft to send until our next meeting.
Yeah, I agree with that. So do you want a motion to table?
Yeah, well, I make a motion to table it until our next meeting.
Okay. I'll second that.
Okay. Motion and a second. Do I have any discussion on it? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, so we will table any further action on that until the next meeting. I will be inviting Cheryl Spara to try and join us at our next meeting, so that if we have questions specifically, since she authored them, she can provide that insight if she's available. If she's not, I'll see what I can get to have that resource available. But they've sent people out to us in the past, and we've gone through these, and to have that clarity, I think, is really important. So
And you can watch your video online as well.
yeah, the Abington Cam filmed us previously. 2021 was November 15th.
November?
Yep, when we had DJ Wilson from the Tobacco Control Commission join us as well. So they went through the 2021 copy, which, as we looked, has decent parallels. So they do answer a lot of questions. All right, next item on our agenda is correspondence. Chris, do you have any, or does the board?
So we've been getting a lot of calls about trash barrel replacements. So I just wanted to let residents know, if your trash barrel is damaged, whether it's the lid or the wheels of the barrel itself, we can replace it. Two caveats with that. Number one, we are extremely short-staffed in the department. It's just myself and a public health nurse, so we can't get out immediately to replace barrels. I know I get a few people that have been waiting a few weeks, but it's weather dependent, it's staffing dependent, it's trash day dependent, and I am, even though I ordered new trash barrels this year, I am down to my last 6. So at some point I'm gonna have to put in a new order for barrels, and that's a lot of money. We haven't budgeted, but just want people to be patient. We will replace your barrel, it's just gonna take a little bit of time.
Do you have separate lids, or do you replace the whole barrel?
It depends on the damage. If I can replace the lid, I'll replace just the lid. I strip them down when I get them, so like wheels, I can replace the wheels. But sometimes it's the squirrels especially, they get the handle that the lid goes on, and then you gotta replace the whole barrel for one little break. It's ridiculous.
That's hard to believe, because they're pretty rugged.
Yeah, they have a shelf life of 12 to 15 years, and we're at about 12, so normal wear and tear, they're starting to go. I will tell people, if you have squirrels, the 2 keys to keeping squirrels off your trash barrels is not to overload your toter. If your lid is up at all, the squirrels can smell the trash and will get in. And once they know you've got trash in there, they will chew through. The other thing is hot chili pepper. It's safe for the environment, safe for birds, squirrels hate it. So just sprinkle it around your barrels and on them, and it will keep the squirrels off.
Oh, hot chili pepper.
Just
What about-
don't touch your face after you touch your trash barrel.
What about deer and geese?
Good luck. That's all I got for correspondence.
I just wanted to mention, obviously, we have holidays and things coming up over the next couple weeks here, a lot of celebrations with lots of people. Please be mindful, if you are feeling sick, please stay home. If you feel that you need to take certain precautions, please do so. Obviously, we don't want to have an event or anything like we did last year where COVID numbers spiked, so just please be mindful.
Yeah, if you need test kits, come see us. We're closed Friday.
All right.
We still have test kits. So.
Anything else for the board?
Are you open Monday?
No.
No. Okay. Close Friday and Monday.
So Are there places that people can pick up test kits if they can't get to town hall during business hours?
I've tried to make them available at houses of worship, and I'll probably drop some off this week. The senior center has them, and I believe the fire station and police station has them as well. And I'll double check with them tomorrow to make sure that they do.
And does the Legion still have them?
The Legion should have some. If they don't, I'll replenish them tomorrow.
Okay.
Library has a bunch, yeah.
All right, that is our agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn from Kevin, second from Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned. 6:37.
Lisa, would be helpful if I thought these, I sent these